What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 65 of Sales Stories in Real Life. I'm your host, Alex Bruschi, and this is the show where professional salespeople share their stories about memorable buying experiences. Today, we've got the man, the myth, the bartending legend, Josh Bailey, on the show. He is the VP of Community at Saleboat. He is growing his personal brand through LinkedIn, through fun and engaging sales content that is also actionable. Josh, you're a legend, man. Welcome to the show. Really, really glad we got to do this. I heard that you had, obviously, you're building a startup now at Salesboat, and I heard you having a really interesting experience identifying some fractional talent to bring on to help grow the team and help grow the brand. What's been happening there, Josh? Before we get started, I want to introduce you to Lead Feeder. We all know the struggle of identifying website visitors and turning them into valuable leads. Imagine having the power to identify companies visiting your website, track their behavior in real time, and seamlessly integrate it all into your CRM. With customizable notifications, lead scoring, and GDPR compliance, Leadfeeder is changing the lead generation game. Head over to leadfeeder.com, LEADFEEDER.com for a demo today. Now, back to the conversation.
Yeah, well, first off, I gotta say, man, thanks for having me on. Call me a legend off the bat. Woo, that's awesome, brother. I appreciate you. In episode 65, it's a big shout out right there. Yeah, as most of your listeners would definitely know, building a startup is hard. Everyone wears many different hats. So what do? You don't spend a lot of money right away hiring a ton of people. You go in lean, which I would like to think most people are doing, but unfortunately, it's not always the case. So in the fractional and consultant world, there are a lot of people that obviously offer those skills that you're looking for, whether it's short term or long term. You really need the right person on to help you identify weaknesses within a specific area. And my story, actually, we were having a lot of problems in the, I guess, marketing world of it. We're strong on the marketing side. We have a strong marketing team, but when it came to the digital marketing side, when it came to like ads or creating reports, we really didn't know what to do there. So what we did is like what any startup leader would do. Our CEO was like, okay, well, we need to find someone to help us out with this. What does someone do? Do they go to a job board and look for someone part-time? I mean, if the budget doesn't fit, obviously that's not a big smart move there, because again, lean. So we decided to kind of tap into our network. And
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Have you ever wanted to start a podcast but have no idea where the heck to get started? Send me a DM on LinkedIn, and in just 2 to 3 hours per week, I can teach you how to start and maintain a podcast. Make your voice heard today. Start a podcast. Now, back to the conversation.
network. And as you know, we're really just focusing on building the Sailboat brand around the go-to network strategy and not go to market because community, VP community here, means everything when you're growing. So we tapped into the public and kind of went through our community and our connections, and we found a couple people that we could, I guess, interview and talk to based on their experience and what was said on their LinkedIn profiles, at least what we thought to believe, and some of their profiles was true. Yeah, heads up, everyone. Sometimes the things that people say on the profile is not always true, but that's okay. A big shocker. There we go. What we did is we went to a couple of different profiles. I'm big on references. Talking to someone like you, Alex, I would ask you, hey, do you know a person? Obviously referred over, a lot more trust within that person. If you vouch for someone, obviously I'm going to go and make sure that that person is, interviewed first, in my opinion, because, you vouch for them. You're a guy that I trust and I know. So we got a couple people that we knew from being referred over, and then we got a couple people that weren't referred over, but they had great experience. So I'll tell you, obviously, one person really stood out in the worst way, and one person really stood out in the best way. Now, we did interview about 5 or 6 people here. I want to ask you, Alex, do you want the worst first or the best first?
Let's do the worst first so that we can get some takeaways out of the worst, and then it'll really set the stage for the best experience. So take it away.
Okay, worst experience. You get someone who comes in who knows it all, right? I mean, as a person looking for a help, especially in like the fractional consultant world, and you're interviewing people, you're looking for someone who like knows their stuff and they have experience. Obviously, you're not a professional, so you look for an SME in that space who can help you build in that specific area or help in that specific area. Now, just like any call, especially when you're talking to someone new and it's for a job, you'd want to go in and kind of just like, be respectful to the person who's going to be hiring you, right? I mean, they might be paying you a lot of money. You want to be able to sell yourself in a way and where they can understand you, they can connect with you, build that rapport from the start. This person, obviously not naming any names here, came in and was very strong-headed in the sense of, listen, you need me more than I need you kind of situation, even though he reached out many times, like, oh, we're so excited, like to potentially work with you guys. And we really need your help. But he came in really strong headed and like, listen, here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you what is gonna happen, and you're gonna listen. And first off, like you don't start a conversation that way. And when you're talking to like a couple people in a call, especially with the CEO who's been through the ups and downs of business, come on, like you gotta present yourself differently here. So we actually just let him kind of go off, like, okay, yeah, we're very curious now because you just let your personality shine here. Like I'm very curious what he's gonna say. What happened was he would just talk so much about terms and things we did not understand, hence why we were looking for someone who had experience in this field. He was trying to sell himself in a way of mixing big words and big phrases that were well known in that digital marketing space, say, and sure we know like the basics, but things that he would jump into about new types of tools and reports and terminology and dive into like the topics that were spoken on a digital marketing thread. And it's like we don't care, we just want you to be able to show us or tell us, can you fix or come in and help us with this problem that we have? You're going way too far with trying to sell yourself. One, you're coming in super strong headed and trying to own a conversation by placing yourself as like way ahead of the table than we are when we're the one that is putting out a lot of money to potentially bring you in to help us out. And right away, we already knew right away when he started off the conversation, like, this is ridiculous. This conversation, this is not going to go anywhere. We're not going to hire this guy. But we wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and let him go through what he wanted, his explanation and what he wanted to say, because we're just, we want to give him the peace of mind. And the end of the conversation, though, he's like, so when do I start? I love the confidence. Sure, great. Good confidence at the right time makes sense. In the end, we're like, listen, you're not going to start with us. Actually, my CEO was very, very transparent and like, listen, I didn't understand anything you said. I'm not looking for someone to impress me with words. I'm looking for someone who can help us fix this problem. And the problem is something that I work closely with. And I was like, yeah, you didn't even like talk about that at all. You didn't even talk about how you could fix that problem. You just came in shining flashy objects and then, you know, basically canned the whole thing. It was a pain to see someone come out or come into that conversation, I guess, thinking they know it all, and then just ruin it for himself. We probably got 2 or 3 minutes in talking within that 30 minutes time, and that's obviously not what you're trying to do when you're trying to sell yourself as a fractional.
Yikes. And how about the better How about the better display of consultancy prowess, if you will?
Yeah, I was so triggered about that one. It was just so hard to get into the better one. The better one's much shorter because it's clear, it's easier. Um, and to be honest with you, he did everything right in the sense of he came in. He wasn't, this one actually wasn't referred. Um, he came in, and then what was it? Right away, what I loved, he had a slide deck. I love a good deck when it's like talking to our problem. He had a slide deck. He broke down, he specifically made it for us. Our problem right away, what we wanted to solve, his solution, obviously, like his rates and everything right away. There wasn't a at the end of the call, let me get back to you with my one pager. Here's the rate. We can kind of discuss it here and there, and if we need to adjust, I'll make that adjustment. Um, the best part about him, though, is that he talked to us. Bradley Blaisdell said this actually to me recently, but he talked to us like we're babies. You know, when you're in a specific field and you don't know about that, like that terminology, or you're not an SME in that space, that's why you're going out to find someone. Um, you want to be able to understand what they're saying. So he would actually start speaking about something that seemed complicated, and then he would pause for a second, like, oh, actually, and then he would change his wordage to make sure that we understood. And then he would give us a good analogy of how that worked by breaking it down and showing us, like, hey, so think of it like this. You're in sales, right? So think of it like this in sales. And breaking it down for us to actually understand in that way would help us like really visualize what was happening and what he could do for us from his solution standpoint. So that was definitely the better of both worlds. He worked with us for a while, and he's actually still hanging out in our Slack channel, just hanging out there because we never kicked him out because like who knows, we might need him again down the line, you know. But he understood the mission. He came in making sure that we knew what he was going to do, and he had a solution to our problem. And the best part that he really got to me on was he said he's going to help teach our team. He wasn't there to keep job security for himself. He's going to help teach our team to run it so we can maintain it at the stage we are currently now. And then at the next stage, if we ever needed some more help, he would be there to lend a hand. And that's how you do it, boys and girls.
Yeah, dude, no kidding. It's funny because I wanted to like jump through the screen for the first one as well. I was like, oh my God, that's so irritating. And I don't know if I've actually ever said this on the show before, but it very much reminds me of the story that led me to start the podcast. I'll give the super duper short version, but basically, I was at a farmer's market. There were two donut stands, let's just call them. And I went up to the first one, and the person's like, "Hey, what can I help you with?" And I'm like, "No, no, I'm good." You know, like right away, like I didn't even have a chance to breathe. Like, "Hey, what can I help you with?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, no, I'm good." And I go up to the next stand, and like the person like doesn't say anything for like a good like 2 minutes, right? Which is like an eternity in like real life. And I'm just like eyeing the donuts, and then the guy's like, "Did you find anything you like yet?" And like in that moment, you know, it was so back to back. It was like within 5 minutes of each other. I was like, man, two people could be selling the exact same thing and the buying experience could be completely different. One of them I could walk away disgusted. One of them I could be a customer for life. And so that was actually literally what started the show. I didn't even plan to say that today. So awesome that like your story kind of inspired that. For you, let's start off with the bad one. Like for me, this is a pure example of just like Wolf of Wall Street sales gone wrong, if you will. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you don't want to use the big fancy words. You don't want to jam your service down someone's throat, right? Like it's very much become a game of make the complex sound simple, not quite literally the opposite way around, like using big words like just to like make yourself feel good or make yourself feel smart. Like you want the other person to understand what you're saying. So why don't you walk us through like how does someone like identify like where somebody's at in the process? Because as an example, like if you're talking to the director of IT, maybe they do want you to get super in the weeds. But like if you're talking to the CEO, the VP of community, you know, like the company leaders that like aren't maybe necessarily technical, like they probably don't want to go into the weeds about something like that. So like how do you kind of like walk through like identifying like reading the room, let's just say, without using a different phrase?
You know, I'm a big fan of being transparent off the bat. I think that shows a lot on personality. And if you can come in to a conversation with someone and you're like, listen, guys, how much do you already know? Like, tell me exactly what you are struggling with, obviously, and tell me what you know already. I did my research. Let's say I actually did my research. So that's a big one. I only have to mention that because everyone should be doing that already. Um, so I did my research. I can tell, you know, you're the CEO of X. You have a background in this and this. Um, and I can tell the person that came on the call as well is, a leader in this space. They have a background in this, but with this problem, how do you guys want me to go about explaining it to you guys? It's very important that I come off here, making sure that you walk away understanding what I have to say. I think that's super, super important. So let's get the best out of this conversation between us. And to answer your question without having to read the room, literally ask the room, what would you like? How would you like me to talk about this to both of you? I think that people they get scared and they put away that human aspect of it. And I can see that those jitters come in when you have conversations with like higher ups, especially in the C-suite. But we're just human. Ask them, and I'm sure they're going to, reply with, "Thank you for asking." Actually, I'm not very knowledgeable in the space, or actually, I do know a little bit. Break it down for me quick in a couple quick sentences. You'll get the best out of a conversation if you do it that way.
Dude, that's amazing feedback. I love that talk track too, because had this person done this, you guys would have told them, "Hey, we're kind of new, we're kind of new to the space. We're pretty early stage." And then you can tailor your pitch based on what the person's telling you versus if you ask, you're like, "Hey, we're really deep into this process. Like, we want you to get in the weeds with us, right?" Like, I've said this before, like if you're pitching every single person exactly the same, you're failing. Full stop, right? Like you're failing. Like every single person is going to be at a different place in their buying process. Every person is going to be at a different place in their education process, right? I can go on and on and on. All of these people need to be pitched differently, and it's up to the seller to figure out and assess where that person is at. I love how you said that. Tell me, literally just ask them. Tell me where you're at. So let's dive into the better experience here a little bit. I mean, what really kind of stood out to me right away is like this person is still poking around your Slack channel, right? So like they have like essentially established themselves as like that voice of credibility, or like they're part of the family essentially, right? Like how do salespeople, fractional leaders, consultants, like whoever it is, how does an I'll put it an even better way, how does an outsider get to the inside?
Yeah, by being honest from the start, I think that's a big one. And then obviously asking a lot of questions and showing a lot of support. Um, Throughout the process, I think the biggest way to stay on the inside is to be extra communicative. I think that sharing everything that's happening while you're solving for X problem, oversharing, is very good. Everyone that is on Slack has a million messages a day. They get lost, and to be honest with you, let people know like what you're doing, what you fixed, what you're working on, especially in the fractional and consultant world. Most of them are working abroad or it's all virtual. You need to be communicative all the time. Don't wait for someone to ask you when it comes to like, what did you do today? Or how was the week? Because we're all busy here. We hired you as the SME to fix this problem. And this is something that he did was just stay super communicative and taught our team. When there was an issue, it wasn't, hey, let me fix it because I can work longer to stick around to make a few extra bucks. It was, let's hop on a call. Let me walk you through the process and how I do it. Let's screen record that process so you can go back and try it on your own time. And then you now have this new skill. So teaching them, you're not hiring a fractional to always just come in and fix a solution. As a startup, you would love for that fractional to give a little bit of support into your team and the people that are actually going to stick around in the team for long term. Maybe you get hired, who knows? But that said, the people are going to stick around that are the day oneers. If they have that knowledge, you'll probably be sticking around a lot longer because they can vouch for you. Wow, that guy was a great person to work with, or that girl was a great person to work with, and yeah, that's super super important.
So one of the things that you mentioned a couple times is SMEs. So for those potentially unaware, SME is subject matter expert. Feel like you're the perfect person to ask this. I know I didn't prepare you for this, but I know that you're the person who will know the answer to this question right off the bat. Let's say that salesperson, marketer, whatever you are, whoever you are, whatever you do, wants to take that step towards becoming an SME, a subject matter expert, particularly folks that are early on in their career. Maybe they're an SDR today, maybe they're fresh out of college, maybe they've been doing what they're doing for a couple years only. How do folks kind of get on that path to becoming an SME at whatever they're doing?
Yeah, I love this. Being humble about it. I'm gonna say like none of us are SMEs yet. I love using like the term SME a lot because there are people that actually like to place themselves. And they're looked at differently because they're higher up in that chain. There isn't like a 5 year time frame and you become an SME. I'm not sure if there are people that look at it that way. I think that a lot of people that are SMEs understand that the space that they're in changes, the market changes constantly. So you
Yep.
just have to be on top of trends. If you are trying to become an SME or place your brand as subject matter experts in that space, whether it's personal or your company brand, you really just have to be on top of what's happening in the market in that area. Being online a lot in a specific channel where your other subject matter experts live, whether it's like a Reddit thread, whether it's a freaking Slack channel in a community. It could be LinkedIn for the B2B space, of course. Follow the right people who are talking loudly about that specific area that you're trying to become an SME in. Learn from them, question their learnings as well. Don't just take what they say and walk away with it. Ask how does it work? Break it down yourself. Do your own research. Now, all this sounds like a lot, and it is. You're not going to have a life after finding a way to become an SME. No, I'm joking. But what's going to happen is you're going to be spending extra time in your day learning, and that's what we're all here for. Take an opportunity to learn in the position you're in. So if you're in a job that you're trying to become an SME in, make sure that you can, grow in that position because for your future, it's important that you're able to get a lot of learning and development within that role and that you can also spend your time on the outside of that role learning and developing yourself because I mean you're not going to stay in the same position you're in forever unless you're like a fractional traveling the world, so go for it, do it. But that said, yeah, just really just listen and learn and place yourself in the right channels with the right people.
Great advice and a really good distinction as well, because being a subject matter expert doesn't necessarily equate to years of experience or doesn't necessarily relate to time at all. Right? Like it's the current state of subject, right? So I thought that was a really good distinction, and you're kind of like on a roll right now. So I'm just going to feed you because I know that one of the things you're really passionate about is obviously building a personal brand. Your video content is awesome, very engaging. Obviously, you put a lot of effort into it, and like you really go above and beyond, and it shows. So I guess kind of taking a step back, like what are your thoughts on building a personal brand? Why do you do it? Why should others do it? Maybe more importantly, if somebody hasn't started that journey yet, why would you recommend they should?
Yeah, so honestly, we're all online nowadays. Social is a place that you can go and sell, and you can go and find a job or whatever. You can build community, in my case. To be honest with you, I think that it's very important that everyone has a personal brand in today's world on social, especially if you're in the B2B sales world. You're going to be winning because a lot of people aren't posting on LinkedIn. Let's talk about LinkedIn for a second because I'm building on LinkedIn, of course. Um, you always hear that statistic, and maybe some of you haven't, but only 1% of people on LinkedIn are actually posting. So not just being that 1% that's posting, but going in there to comment on people's content is a big one. Um, Building out content for your own profile that you can use to place yourself as an SME in the future. Everything you put online now is going to be looked at for years down the road. Build it out now. If you can always change it. That's okay. So don't get afraid when I say it like that. But you can build it out the right way in the beginning. Make mistakes. That's okay. You just got to start by doing it, and I'll give you like a little bit of tactical how I did it because I think it's really important is for LinkedIn, for example, I got a list of 100 people in the sales space, 100 influencers, let's call them in the sales space. I built a list in a document. I hyperlinked their posts, their more recent posts, into their name. And every day I went into that list and I commented on their stuff. I engaged with the comments on their posts because those people are also active. From there, I started to understand what they were talking about, learning more about what they're talking about. I built my own little shout out to Todd Clauser and Obed running for this one realm of relevancy, which is where all my content comes from. Everything I talk about is pulled off a document and built into pieces of content that can always be pulled back to what I would like to place myself as in a brand world. So it's all lives in one document. I do post occasional like funny little thing here and there, but that's just because I want to show personality, and that's also important. But engaging with people, commenting on people's stuff, showing support, bringing that conversation to the DMs, asking how you can help them or their team. Everyone needs a second pair of eyes. So if they say, I don't need help, let me review your content. Let me proofread something for you. Whatever, right? And yeah, really just show up every single day. I'm gonna tell everyone a stat that I've had to run into, and it's I've spent more than 4 hours a day on LinkedIn in the last 3 months. Um, and that's time. Now, my marriage is great. Thanks for asking. No, honestly, though, it takes time and effort. I stopped using other social platforms to invest my time in a platform that's actually helped me grow professionally. And why it's so important is because you might not always be at X job, but your personal brand will live on, and you can create a large community behind you who's going to vouch for you and build that credibility with that personal brand.
Yeah, that's the key where I think it gets a little bit tricky is that it does take time. And like for people who have full-time jobs to be able to balance that, to your point, it's like I can't be online commenting on people's posts all day because I have ACV to close, but after dinner, I could spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? And go through and drop a bunch of comments. So I think there's a really like important balance to be struck there. But then again, like your role is also community. So like there are going to be people who this is like right down the middle of the plate for. Their goal is to like build a community or like really build something very public, and for those people, yeah, maybe you have a little bit more time in the day. But for like people who are full-time sellers as an example, like maybe that translates into 20 minutes at night, 30 minutes at night, a couple of hours on the weekend, right? But to your point, it's like you put in that time, even if it's 15 minutes a day, and you do that over 3 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, right? Just that compound effect is just game changing. I could certainly attest. So we got to cover a lot of topics here today. SMEs, building personal brands. Like, what's one idea that you want to leave the audience with? Like, I know that you have a lot of topics you're passionate about. Rather than teeing you up for something, I'm just gonna kind of like pass you a soapbox right now and just like give us like one Josh take for the road.
Yeah, stay true to yourself and let your personality shine. Be yourself in any conversation you come across. Don't try to be something you're not because eventually you'll run into people in person and you're going to play, it's going to be different. You have a social face and you have an in-person face. Just be yourself all the way through, true and true, and you'll see that people will like you for who you are, unless you're just an a-hole. There's a couple of them out there. I'm sorry. But that said, um, don't be afraid just because it's a professional space that we're all in, especially in that B2B tech world. It seems very daunting and like very scary to talk to certain people, and you're scared about what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, how you're going to offend someone.
Yeah.
Just obviously have common sense and yeah, let your personality shine because in an AI driven world, that's what's really standing out nowadays is real personality.
Yeah, I love that. Like if you like cracking jokes, crack jokes. If you love dogs, talk about your dog. If you love food, talk about food. Right? Like you can go on and on and on. Like you can be those things, like plus an SME, right? That almost makes you like even more of an SME because it's like, oh, this is like a subject matter expert, like with a personality. So I'm huge on that and want people to like know my personality as well. I'm big on that. Josh,
Totally.
this has been freaking awesome. Know that you're working on a bunch, obviously, particularly in the sailboat world and in the personal branding world. Why don't you plug Sailboat with the audience? Let us know what you guys are working on. What does Sailboat do? Take it away.
Okay, this will not be a shameless plug, y'all. I'm gonna tell you straight up. We're building our MVP. It's something we're building out in public right now. We launched it in March. And to be honest with you all, we're unlocking sales reps' time to maximize their impact. Impact being unlocking the time with revenue generating activities. Most sales leaders are looking at call count, email sent, etc. When there are other activities that are at play that can be unlocked and understood from a contextual standpoint to really help maximize revenue for the company. So, say, for example, internal meetings is one of those things. You want to know how many internal meetings are happening throughout the week within your team, or are follow up calls happening? I think for both sales leaders and salespeople in general, it's important to see that in a holistic view. So that's what we're building. We're building that holistic view and a tool, a time management tool, let's say, to really help sales leaders and salespeople understand what activities are revenue generating and which ones are non-revenue generating activities, because we all want the big bucks, the Benjamins, baby. Like that's what we're here for, right?
It's all
So
about
yeah, we're
Benjamin,
at that
baby.
stage. Yeah, that's
That's
it literally is.
That's awesome, man. Make sure everybody goes and follow Josh Bailey on LinkedIn, spelled exactly as it sounds, B-A-I. I'm curious that those letters are together. Bailey, Josh Bailey. Check out Sailboat, S-A-L-E boat. Josh, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us all. Sales Stories in Real Life, fam. We will see you next week. Cheers.
Been a pleasure, y'all.